Congratulations again on the merger. Truly impressive work.
Thank you. It was a team effort.
Are you enjoying the gala?
Take her away! No, please!
The morning sun in Lagos did not rise with a gentle glow. It burst through the smog and humidity like an angry golden eye, demanding the city wake up and toil. In the affluent neighborhood of Banana Island, behind the towering iron gates of the Okoro mansion, the day had begun long before the sun showed its face. Adesua moved through the marble corridors like a silent ghost. At 23, her skin was the color of polished mahogany, and her eyes held a depth of ancient wisdom that no one in this house cared to notice. Her hands, though calloused from scrubbing floors and polishing silver, possessed a peculiar steadiness. She was a maid, a nobody in the eyes of the wealthy. But in her heart, she carried the weight of 1,000 years of history. She was the last of the Agege lineage, the legendary bronze casters of the Benin Kingdom, though that secret was buried deep beneath her faded uniform. Adesua, where's my lemon water? I have to die of thirst before you find your way to my room. The voice belonged to Cynthia, the only daughter of Chief Okoro. It was a voice that sounded like shattered glass, sharp, expensive, and dangerous. Adesua hurried into the sun-drenched bedroom, balancing a silver tray. Cynthia sat at her vanity, surrounded by imported perfumes and designer bags. She didn't look at Adesua. She looked at Adesua's reflection in the mirror with a sneer of pure disgust. I'm sorry, Miss Cynthia. The lemons were being delivered late, Adesua said softly, her voice a calm contrast to the chaos of the room. Cynthia turned around, her eyes narrowing. She reached out and flicked a stray droplet of water from the tray onto Adesua's face. Excuses. That's all you people have. You think because you have a pretty face you can be slow? Look at you. You smell like dish soap and poverty. Don't stand too close to my silk dress. I don't want your bad luck rubbing off on me. Adesua kept her head bowed. She had learned long ago that fire only grows when you feed it. It won't happen again, miss. It better not, Cynthia hissed. Today is the most important day for this family. My father is hosting the international collectors for the Benin Bronze auction. High society people are coming. People with bloodlines that actually matter. Not like yours, which probably started in a gutter. As Adesua turned to leave, her eyes caught a glimpse of a small, dusty object sitting on the floor, tucked away in a dark corner behind a heavy mahogany wardrobe. It was a bronze head, covered in layers of grime, cobwebs, and white paint from a previous renovation. To anyone else, it was a heavy piece of junk used to keep the wardrobe from wobbling. But as Adesua passed it, she felt a strange thrumming in her fingertips, a vibration that matched her own heartbeat. She paused, her gaze lingering on the obscured features of the bronze. She could see the faint outline of a coral bead crown beneath the dirt. This wasn't just metal. It was an ancestor. It was a piece of the soul of her people being used as a common doorstop. What are you staring at, girl? Cynthia's voice barked, snapping the connection. Nothing, miss. Just that old heavy thing. It's making the floor hard to clean. Cynthia laughed, a cruel, hollow sound. It's a piece of scrap my father found in a warehouse years ago. He keeps it because it's heavy enough to hold the furniture. Why? Do you want it? Maybe you can sell it for a few nairas and buy yourself a soul. Adesua felt a flash of heat in her chest, not of anger, but of protective sorrow. No, miss. I was just thinking it deserves a better place. It's a piece of iron, Adesua, just like you are a piece of help. You both belong on the floor, Cynthia remarked, turning back to her makeup. Now get out. Scrub the grand ballroom until I can see my future in the tiles. And if I find one speck of dust, you'll be sleeping on the streets tonight. Adesua walked out, her heart heavy. As she closed the door, she whispered a silent prayer in the Edo language, a language of kings and warriors. She didn't know it yet, but the piece of scrap on the floor was the very thing the whole world was looking for. And she, the maid they spat upon, was the only one who held the key to its awakening. The sun was indeed rising over Lagos, and for the first time in decades, the bronze was starting to breathe. The grand ballroom of the Okoro mansion was a
Congratulations
sea
again
of
on the
glittering
merger.
chandeliers,
Truly impressive
expensive
work.
perfumes,
Thank you.
and the
It was a
clinking of
team
crystal
effort.
glasses.
Are you
Chief
enjoying
Okoro,
the gala?
a man whose ambition was as vast as his sprawling estate, stood at the center of a circle of international art collectors, historians, and wealthy socialites. He wore a heavy agbada, made of the finest lace, gold chains weighing down his neck, but his eyes were not on his guests. They were fixed on the empty velvet pedestal at the front of the room. Gentlemen, ladies, Chief Okoro's voice boomed, silenced the room. Today, we are not just here to talk about business. We are here to talk about power. For decades, the world has whispered about the lost bronze of the OBA, a masterpiece cast in the 16th century, said to be the spiritual anchor of the Benin kingdom. They say whoever possesses the true bronze will never know poverty or defeat. In the back of the room, hidden behind a heavy velvet curtain, Adesua stood with a tray of appetizers. She listened to the chief's words, and a bitter smile touched her lips. To these men, the bronze was a trophy, a financial asset to be traded and bragged about. To her, it was her grandfather's tears. It was the sacred breath of her ancestors frozen in metal. She remembered her grandfather's trembling voice telling her stories of how the great bronze was smuggled out of the palace during a fire, hidden by a lineage of casters who swore to protect it with their lives. My sources have tracked the bronze to this very region, Chief Okoro continued, his eyes gleaming with greed. I have spent millions on excavations and informants. The auction tonight is for the smaller pieces, but the man who brings me the great bronze, that man will be a partner in all my enterprises. Cynthia swept through the crowd, her silk dress rustling like a snake in the grass. She stopped beside her father, her hand resting haughtily on his arm. Father, why do you waste your breath explaining history to these people? Most of them just want to know how much it's worth in dollars. And as for the bronze, if it were truly that powerful, the people who made it wouldn't be living in shacks today. She cast a sharp, condescending look toward the curtain where Adesua was standing. Cynthia knew Adesua was watching, and she took pleasure in loud, cruel remarks. It's funny, isn't it? The royal art belongs to us now. While the descendants of those who made it are probably out there scrubbing toilets or serving us drinks. Ripple of laughter went through the elite circle. Adesua's grip tightened on the silver tray until her knuckles turned white. She felt the heat of the ancestors rising in her blood. She thought of the heavy, painted object sitting in the dust of Cynthia's bedroom. A sudden, terrifying realization washed over her. The vibration she had felt earlier, the pulse of the metal, it wasn't just old iron. It was a call. The chief's guests began to bid on smaller artifacts, bronze bells, ceremonial swords, and ivory carvings. Each time the gavel hit the wood, millions of nairas changed hands. It was a feast of vultures. Adesua felt a sudden urge to scream, to tell them that they were trading souls for paper. As the night progressed, a tall, mysterious man entered the ballroom. He didn't wear gold chains or expensive lace. He wore a simple, perfectly tailored dark suit. This was Prince Efe, though here he went by a pseudonym. His presence was quiet but commanding. He walked straight to the empty pedestal and touched the velvet. Chief Okoro Efe said, his voice smooth and deep, "You seek the great bronze for its luck. But history says the bronze only speaks to those whose hands are clean of greed. Tell me, if the bronze were in this house right now, would you even recognize it? Or would you walk past it because it wasn't polished with gold?" The room went silent. I would know my prize. From the shadows, Adesua looked at Efe for the first time. She saw someone who looked at the art with reverence, not hunger. But before she could think further, Cynthia's sharp voice cut through her thoughts. "Adesua, you lazy girl, you've spilled wine on the carpet." Cynthia marched toward her, her face contorted with a sudden manufactured rage. The lost heritage was the theme of the night, but for Adesua, the immediate reality was the beginning of a nightmare. Cynthia wasn't just looking for a reason to scold her, she was looking for a reason to destroy her. The trap was about to be set. Here's a suggestion for you. The gala was reaching its crescendo, but in the dimly lit hallway leading to the master wing, a different kind of performance was taking place. Cynthia stood before a glass display case containing a small acerbic gold-plated Benin pendanta, family heirloom Chief Okoro boasted was his lucky charm. With a swift, practiced movement, Cynthia slipped the pendant into the pocket of her silk dress. Her eyes gleamed with a cold, predatory light. She didn't want the gold. She wanted the satisfaction of seeing Adesua broken. She hurried back to the ballroom, her face suddenly transformed into a mask of frantic distress. "Father, father," she shrieked, loud enough to cut through the classical music and the hum of conversation. The heirloom, the golden pendant, is gone. The room fell into a suffocating silence. Chief Okoro's face turned a dangerous shade of purple. "What are you saying, Cynthia?" "I saw it in the case only an hour ago." "I saw Adesua coming out of your study, father," Cynthia lied, her voice dripping with fake concern. She looked nervous. "I asked her what she was doing, and she ran toward the servants' quarters. I didn't want to believe it, but—" Chief Okoro didn't wait for another word. He roared for the security guards. Adesua, who was in the kitchen cleaning a stack of crystal glasses, was dragged into the center of the ballroom by two burly men. The guests, the same elite who had just been celebrating heritage, now stared at her with expressions of disgust and judgment. "Search her," Chief Okoro commanded. Adesua's heart felt like a trapped bird. "Chief, I haven't been near your study. I have been in the kitchen all night. Please." I would never. A guard grabbed her small cloth bag, the one she kept tucked in her apron, and dumped its contents onto the marble floor. Amidst a few coins and a worn prayer bead, something bright clattered and rolled across the tiles. It was the golden pendant. A collective gasp echoed through the room. Adesua stared at the gold, her mind spinning. She hadn't put it there. She hadn't even seen it. Then she caught sight of Cynthia. The girl was leaning against a pillar, a tiny, triumphant smirk dancing on her lips. In that moment, Adesua understood. This wasn't a mistake. It was an execution. "I knew it," Cynthia whispered loudly. "The blood of a servant always seeks what it cannot earn." Chief Okoro stepped forward, his heavy hand swinging through the air. Slap. The sound was like a gunshot. Adesua's head jerked to the side, her cheek burning with a searing heat. She didn't cry out, simply stood there, the copper taste of blood filling her mouth. I'll be all by all one way to wind. By all wall, mean away all I'm in shint. I'm on with I'm in Ryan Rin I'm in bowing dumb right when I'm in Bry rid I'm by might I'm right I'm dry I'm jay I'm my eye by eye I'm jay your jab. I took you in when you had nothing, and you repay me by stealing my luck. Out. Get out of my house before I have the police throw you in a hole you'll never crawl out of. But Chief, it's a storm outside, the head butler whispered, looking at the torrential rain lashing against the floor-to-ceiling windows. I don't care, Okoro roared. Throw her out, and take her filthy rags with her. The guards grabbed Adesua by the arms and dragged her through the grand entrance. They threw her out onto the gravel driveway just as a bolt of lightning tore through the Lagos sky. Her small bundle was tossed after her, landing in a muddy puddle. The heavy iron gates of the mansion slammed shut, the sound echoing like the closing of a tomb. Adesua lay in the mud, the cold rain soaking her to the bone. Her face throbbed and her soul felt bruised. For a moment, she wanted to give up, to let the water wash her away. But then she remembered. She reached into her soaked bundle and felt the hard, jagged edge of the old parchment her grandmother had given her the map to the true foundry. She looked back at the mansion, at the glowing lights where the thieves were celebrating culture, while the true heir sat in the dirt. She stood up, her legs shaking but her heart hardening like tempered bronze. She didn't need their house. She had the blood of kings in her veins, and a mystery to solve that would bring their gilded world crashing down. She turned her back on Banana Island and began to walk into the darkness, toward the ancient city of Benin. The journey from the neon-lit chaos of Lagos to the red-earth silence of Benin City felt like traveling backward through time. Adesua had spent her last few coins on a cramped, dusty bus, her face still bruised, but her eyes burning with a newfound purpose. As she stepped off at the ancient gateway of the city, the air felt different, thick, with the scent of rain-drenched soil and the metallic temps of iron. This was the land of the great walls, the home of the warrior kings, and the birthplace of the bronze that now called to her soul. She wandered through the narrow streets of the Igon district, the traditional home of the royal bronze casters. Here, the sound of hammers hitting anvils was the heartbeat of the city. Clang, clang, clang. It was a rhythm she felt in her very bones. Following the crude map her grandmother had left her, Adesua found herself in front of a small, crumbling forge at the edge of the forest. It was a place the modern world had forgotten, covered in creeping vines and moss. Sitting on a low wooden stool in front of a dying fire was an old man. Skin was wrinkled like the bark of an ancient tree, and his eyes were clouded with the milky white of cataracts. He was blind, yet as Adesua approached, he stopped his hammering and tilted his head. "You have kept me waiting a long time, daughter of Ige," the old man whispered, his voice sounding like two stones rubbing together. Adesua froze, her breath catching in her throat. How do you know my name?" "I have never been here before." The old man, known to the locals as Baba Ikide, reached out a trembling hand. "I do not need eyes to see the fire that walks with you. I can hear the bronze singing in your blood. It has been quiet for many years, ever since the great bronze was lost to the eyes of men. But today it screams." Adesua knelt in the red dust beside him. "The mansion where I worked. They are looking for it, Baba. Chief Okoro and the collectors. They want it for power and money. They treated me like dirt, yet they worshipped the metal my ancestors made." Baba Ikide let out a low, dry chuckle. The great bronze of the Obe was never stolen, Adesua. It was never taken across the sea by the invaders. It was hidden in plain sight, disguised by the hands of your grandfather to wait for the one who would value the soul more than the shine. He leaned closer, the heat of the forge reflecting in his sightless eyes. "Listen to the whisper, child. The bronze is not in a museum. It is not buried in a hole. It is where the most precious things are often found, among the neglected and the forgotten. It is covered in the clay of shame. To the world, it looks like a piece of scrap. But beneath the mud is the light of a kingdom." Adesua's mind raced back to the Okoro mansion, to the heavy, paint-stained object she had used as a doorstop in Cynthia's room. Her heart leaped. It's there. It's been under their noses all along. They use it to hold up their furniture while they search the world for it. "The path back will be dangerous," Baba Ikide warned, handing her a small vial of dark, pungent oil. "They have called you a thief. They have stained your name. But the oil of the ancestors will wash away the lies. When the time is right, pour this on the metal. It will not just reveal the bronze. It will reveal the truth of everyone in that house." Adesua took the vial, feeling a strange warmth spread through her fingers. The ancient whisper was no longer a mystery. It was a command. She realized that her suffering in the mansion wasn't just bad luck. It was a trial. She had to be the scorned maid to stay close to the treasure until it was time for it to wake up. As she stood to leave, the old man picked up his hammer once more. "Go, Queen of the Forge. The spirits of the bronze are restless. The king is coming to the city, and he will need a witness who cannot be bought with gold." Adesua walked back toward the bus station, the red dust of Benin clinging to her feet like a promise. She was no longer a victim. She was a guardian returning for her crown. Adesua sat at a small roadside stall near the Benin City bypass, waiting for a night bus back to Lagos.
I'm glad you found me.
Her mind was a storm of ancient whispers and modern betrayals. She clutched the vial of sacred oil in her pocket, as if it were her only anchor to reality. The rain had returned, a soft drizzle that turned the red earth into a thick crimson paste. "The buses are always late when the ancestors are restless," a smooth, cultured voice remarked from the shadows of the stall. Adesua startled, looking up to see the man she had noticed briefly at Chief Okoro's gala. It was the man in the dark suit who had spoken with such reverence about the bronze. But here, miles away from the champagne and silk of Banana Island, he looked different. He wore simple trousers and a linen shirt, yet he carried an air of effortless authority that no amount of expensive lace could buy. "You are the girl from the mansion," he said, stepping into the dim light of the stall's lantern, the one they accused of theft. Adesua stood up, her guard instantly rising. "If you are here to take me back to Chief Okoro's guards, you are wasting your time. I have nothing that belongs to him." The man smiled, and for the first time, Adesua saw a genuine warmth in his eyes. "My name is Efe, and you are right to have nothing that belongs to him, because nothing in that house truly belongs to a man like Okoro. He buys history, but he doesn't understand its soul." He sat on a wooden bench across from her, ignoring the dust. "I followed you because I saw the way you looked at the artifacts. You didn't look at them like a servant. You looked at them like a mother looking at a lost child. Tell me, Adesua, why does a maid from Lagos carry the map of the Agege bronze casters?" Adesua hesitated, but there was something about Efe's presence that felt like the cool shade of an iroko tree. She told him everything, the stories of her grandfather, the secret lineage she carried, the vibration she felt from the scrap metal in Cynthia's room, and the wicked trap that had landed her in the mud. As she spoke, Efe's expression shifted from curiosity to profound respect. He revealed his own truth. He was not just a collector. He was a member of the royal house of Benin, an expert sent to recover the stolen heritage of his people. He had been playing the part of a wealthy buyer to infiltrate Okoro's circle, searching for the great bronze that had been missing for generations. "I have the money to buy every piece of bronze in that mansion," Efe said, his voice dropping to a serious whisper. "But the great bronze cannot be bought. It must be claimed. If what you say is true, if that doorstop in the girl's bedroom is the lost anchor of our kingdom, then the gods have played a magnificent joke on the greedy. They will never let me back inside," Adesua said, looking at her calloused hands. "To them, I am a thief, a ghost." "Then we will make you a ghost they cannot ignore," Efe replied, his eyes flashing with a regal fire. "Chief Okoro is hosting a final grand auction tomorrow night. He has invited the world to see his lucky collection. We will go back Adesua, not as a maid and a buyer, but as the heirs of the Benin throne." He reached out and placed a hand over hers. "I will provide the means, the clothes, and the entrance. But you must provide the truth. You are the only one who can wake the metal. Are you brave enough to stand before the people who spat on you and show them who you really are?" Adesua looked at the vial of oil, then at the man who saw the queen beneath the rags. The fear that had lived in her heart for years finally withered away, replaced by a cold, sharp resolve. "I have spent my life scrubbing their floors," she said, her voice steady and strong. "It is time I showed them the floor is the only place they deserve to be." The night bus finally pulled up, its headlights cutting through the rain. As they stepped onto the bus together, the hidden prince and the scorned maid began the long journey back to Lagos. The auction was coming, and the city of gold and greed had no idea that its foundations were about to be shaken by a piece of scrap and a girl who refused to forget her name. The Okoro mansion on Banana Island looked like a fallen star fallen from the heavens. Thousands of fairy lights draped the palm trees, and the driveway was a parade of Rolls Royces and Maybachs. Inside, The grand ballroom had been transformed into a high-stakes arena of wealth. This was the grand finale. The night Chief Okoro intended to cement his legacy as the greatest collector in West Africa. Chief Okoro stood at the entrance, his agbada made of gold-spun thread, welcoming ambassadors, oil magnates, and European art dealers. Beside him, Cynthia looked like a peacock in a custom-made emerald gown, her neck adorned with the very golden pendant she had used to frame Adesua. She basked in the compliments, her laughter ringing hollow against the marble walls. Tonight, Okoro whispered to his daughter, once the British collectors confirm the value of our collection, the Okoro name will be immortal, and that lucky bronze everyone whispers about, even if it stays lost, the world will think I have it. Perception is the only truth in this room. He didn't notice a sleek, midnight black Bentley pull up at the far end of the garden. He didn't see the man in the charcoal suit and the woman draped in a heavy royal blue cloak step out. Inside, the auction began. The atmosphere was electric with greed. A pair of 18th-century ivory tusks went for $5 million. A ceremonial sword fetched $8 million. Cynthia watched the numbers climb, her heart swelling with a dark pride. She felt invincible. To her, the world was divided into those who owned and those who served, and she was at the very top. And now, the auctioneer announced, his voice trembling with excitement, we come to our premier item. Although Chief Okoro has not officially listed it, we have a rare 16th-century prototype, a piece said to be a precursor to the great Lost Bronze itself. Cynthia had convinced her father to bring the scrap metal from her room. After having a servant scrub off the white paint and slap a layer of cheap gold leaf over the dirt, she wanted to prove that even the junk Adesua had stared at could be sold for millions to these fools. The heavy object, now glowing with a fake, brilliant shine, was wheeled onto the stage on a velvet-covered trolley. "Look at the craftsmanship," an American collector exclaimed, leaning in. From the back of the room, a calm, commanding voice cut through the praise. Craftsmanship, a desperate attempt to hide a lie with gold paint. The crowd parted as Prince Efe stepped forward. He looked regal, his presence dwarfing the chief's. But he wasn't alone. Beside him stood a woman who stopped the breath of everyone in the room. It was Adesua. But she was no longer the maid in the faded uniform. She wore a traditional Edo ensemble of such magnificence it seemed to vibrate with history. Her neck and wrists were heavy with authentic red coral beads, her hair styled in a majestic crown. Her skin glowed like mahogany under the chandeliers, and her gaze was as sharp as a warrior's spear. Cynthia's glass of champagne shattered on the floor. "You, how dare you show your face here, you thief?" Chief Okoro's face turned gray. "Security, get this girl out of here." "Touch her," Efe said, his voice a low growl of authority, "and you touch the royal house of Benin. This is not a thief, Chief Okoro. This is the high guardian of the bronze casters. And she is here to witness the greatest fraud in the history of this city." Adesua stepped toward the stage, her eyes fixed on the gold-leafed object. She didn't look at the crowd. She looked at the metal. She could hear it not a whisper anymore, but a roar of indignation. "You painted it," Adesua said, her voice echoing in the silent ballroom. "You covered the soul of a kingdom with the glitter of a liar. You think you were selling a prototype, Chief? You're selling a miracle you don't even understand?" The tension in the room was a physical weight. The collectors looked at the chief, then at the girl who looked like a queen. The stage was set for the divine reveal, and for the first time in her life, Cynthia felt the cold grip of a fear she couldn't explain. The grand ballroom felt as though it had been plunged into a vacuum. Not a single person breathed. The elite of Lagos, the collectors from London, and the magnates from Dubai stood frozen. Their eyes locked on the woman who had transformed from a scorned maid into a regal vision of history. Adesua stood before the gold-leafed bronze head on the stage, her presence so commanding that even the security guards hesitated to move. "Stay back," Cynthia screamed, her voice cracking with desperation. She scrambled toward the stage, her emerald dress rustling like the scales of a cornered snake. "Father, don't just stand there. She's a criminal. She's here to ruin us. Guards, throw her out now," said. "Stay back," Prince Efe repeated, stepping into the path of the guards. Wouldn't raise his voice, but the sheer weight of his royal authority stopped them in their tracks. He looked at Chief Okoro. "If you are so sure of your prototype, Chief, why are you so afraid of a girl looking at it? Less, of course. You know that the only thing valuable on that stage is the lie you've told." Chief Okoro's face was a map of terror. Sweat beaded on his forehead, soaking through his gold-spun agbada. He knew the world was watching. He knew his reputation was hanging by a thread. "It's a prototype. I had it restored. That's all," he stammered. Adesua ignored them. She reached into the folds of her royal blue wrapper and pulled out the small, dark vial given to her by Baba Ikaid. She also held a ceramic bowl filled with water infused with bitter herbs, the water of truth. "This house has been built on the sweat of people you call shadows," Adesua said. "Boy, wow." Her voice resonant and steady, filling every corner of the ballroom. "You used this sacred object to hold open doors and stabilize furniture. You covered it in white paint to match your walls, and when you realized it might be worth money, covered it in fake gold to match your greed. But the bronze of Benin does not belong to the highest bidder. It belongs to the soil that birthed it." She stepped closer to the pedestal. Cynthia lunged forward, trying to grab the bowl. "Don't you dare touch that. It's worth millions." Adesua gracefully sidestepped her, and with a swift, fluid motion, she poured the herbal water and the sacred oil over the gold-leafed head. "By the blood of Agiga, the casters of kings," Adesua chanted in a low, rhythmic Edo dialect, "I call the spirit of the metal to wake. Wash away the lies. Reveal the soul of the Benin kingdom." At first, nothing happened. The crowd murmured. Cynthia let out a triumphant, mocking laugh. "See, she's just a crazy maid with some stinking oil. She's ruined the finish. Father, sue her for everything she—" Then, a low, thrumming sound began to vibrate through the floorboards. It wasn't the sound of machinery. It was the sound of 1,000 hammers hitting bronze in a distant century. The cheap, bright gold leaf began to bubble and peel away, but it didn't just fall. Off it seemed to be consumed by the dark oil. A collective gasp ripped through the room. As the herbal water washed over the metal, the grime of decades, the White House paint, and the fake gold dissolved, beneath the filth emerged a deep, rich, chocolatey brown patina that glowed with an internal, supernatural light. The eyes of the bronze head, once obscured, now seemed to open. They were wide, regal, and terrifyingly lifelike. The intricate coral bead crown on the head emerged in such perfect detail that it looked like real stone carved by the gods. "It's not a prototype," the British collector whispered, falling to his knees to get a better look. "My God, it's the lost anchor. The great bronze of the Abba. It's been here the whole time." The air in the room grew heavy with the scent of ancient earth and heated metal. A strange golden light seemed to radiate from the statue, illuminating Adesua's face. In that moment, she didn't just look like a queen, she looked like a goddess of the forge. Cynthia stepped back, her face pale with horror. As she retreated, her heel caught on the edge of the carpet. She stumbled, falling into the mud that Adesua had tracked in from the rain. The emerald silk she was so proud of was instantly stained with the dark, wet earth of the very people she had despised. "The pendant," Adesua said, pointing to the gold chain around Cynthia's neck. "Since we are revealing truths tonight, let us reveal that one too." Prince Efe stepped forward, holding a small electronic tablet connected to the mansion's security system. "Chief Okoro, did you think your daughter was the only one who knew how to use your cameras? While you were framing Adesua, the secondary system in the hallway was recording everything, including the moment Cynthia slipped that pendant into her own pocket before planting it in Adesua's bag." He pressed play, and a giant screen at the back of the ballroom flickered to life. The guests watched in silence as the footage showed Cynthia's wicked smile as she framed the maid. The silence that followed was deafening. It was the sound of a family's empire collapsing. Chief Okoro looked at his daughter, then at the great bronze, and at the hundreds of influential people who were already recording the scene on their phones. There was no way out. No amount of money could buy back the honor they had just lost. Adesua walked to the pedestal and placed her hand on the bronze head. The metal felt warm, pulsing against her palm like a living heart. She looked at Cynthia, who was shivering on the floor in her ruined dress. "You called me a shadow, Cynthia," Adesua said softly, her voice filled with a pity that was more painful than anger. "But shadows only exist because there is a light. Today the light has returned, and it is the shadows that must flee." The silence that had enveloped the auction was now broken by the murmurs of contempt from the wealthy guests. Eyes that had once admired the Okoro family now held a look of disgust. The video evidence continued to play on the large screen, capturing Cynthia's every cunning move. for the super-rich reputation was everything. And in a single night, Chief Okoro had lost everything he had spent his life building. Cynthia struggled to her feet, mud clinging to her magnificent dress, but no one offered help. She looked around, hoping for some sympathy, but even her father had his back turned. Chief Okoro, once a powerful man now aged by decades, he knew his political and business career was over. The police and representatives from the Ministry of Culture were already at the entrance, ready to confiscate the illegal collection and begin an investigation into the origins of the stolen artifacts. Prince Efe stepped onto the stage, standing beside Adesua. He looked directly at the crowd and declared, "This treasure does not belong to any individual. It is the soul of the Kingdom of Benin. From today, it will be brought to the National Museum so that all Nigerians may venerate it. And the person who will lead this heritage preservation project is none other than Adesua, the true guardian of the royal bronze casting bloodline." The applause was thunderous, not for Okoro's wealth, but for the resilience of the girl they had once considered a servant. A few months later, setting shifts from the opulent Lagos mansion back to the ancient city of Benin. A new museum is inaugurated on the site of the Adesua family's former bronze foundry. Here, the bronze statue gleams in the sunlight, not with artificial gold plating, but with the solemn beauty of history. Adesua now holds the position of director, dressed formally but maintaining a simple and humble demeanor. She doesn't use her power to take revenge on the Okoro family. The greatest punishment for them is oblivion. Cynthia and her father now live in social ostracism, working to pay off the enormous debts incurred after the scandal. They have learned the most valuable lesson. Gold and silver can buy service, but they can never buy loyalty or truth. On a glorious sunset afternoon, Adesua stood beside Prince Efe on the museum balcony. They looked down at the street where young blacksmiths toiled at their bellows. The sound of clang, clang, echoing regularly and powerfully. "Did you hear that?" Adesua asked softly. "The sound of hammers." Efe smiled. "No," Adesua replied, her eyes shining with happiness. "That's the sound of our ancestors' hearts beating. They're no longer weeping. They're smiling." The story of the despised servant and the lost treasure of Benin has become a new legend. It reminds everyone, never despise someone because of their appearance or status. Because sometimes the person you look down on the most is the one who holds the key to awakening an entire kingdom. Justice may come late, like rain after a drought, but when it comes, it will wash away all stains and sow the seeds of truth.